Hey guys, so it's been 86 days since Nancy Guthrie vanished from her home in Tucson, Arizona, and I'm back in Tucson. This is Nancy's house right here. I haven't been here in a while, but I'm back working on a couple of things. You can see the memorial still outside, outside her house. The neighbors cleaned a lot of it up. A lot of the old flowers they threw away. There's still all the yellow ribbons in the trees. It's just so weird to think about. It's been almost 3 months and still nothing. I mean, no solid leads that I've heard about from any of my sources, no suspects. How did Nancy Guthrie just disappear from her neighborhood here, her house right back there, taken in the night from her bed, from what we've been told, and just still absolutely nothing. It's just hard for me to shake, which is why I'm still here working on the story. And I'll keep you guys posted with anything new that I find out. But sun's starting to set here in Tucson. It's beautiful, beautiful night here. But still no Nancy Guthrie developments.
She was there when her daughter said goodnight, and then she was gone. No broken locks, no shattered glass, no scream that anyone heard, just a bedroom that looked almost exactly the same as it always had. Except for the one unbearable detail that changed everything. She wasn't in it. Think about that for a moment. An 84-year-old woman in her own home, in the city she had lived in for years, vanished, not wandered, not lost, taken. And whoever did it was calm enough, confident enough, and calculated enough that they left almost no trace behind. Almost. Because here is the thing that will keep you up at night. This was not the work of panic. This was not a crime of opportunity. Every detail, the silence that followed, the messages that appeared and then stopped, the complete absence of proof that she was even still breathing, pointed to one terrifying conclusion. Someone had planned this. Someone had waited. And when the moment came, they moved without hesitation. But the deeper investigators dug, the more disturbing the case became. Because what if the old woman was never really the target? What if she was something far more sinister? A message delivered to someone else? What if the person who orchestrated this entire thing was not chasing money at all, but something far more personal, far more dangerous, and far harder to prosecute? What you're about to hear is one of the most haunting disappearance cases in recent memory. A case full of ransom letters that may have been designed to deceive. A Bitcoin trail that went ice cold. Retired FBI profilers who said words that sent chills down the spine of everyone in the room. And a single strand of evidence, so small most people would have walked right past it, that could finally crack this case wide open. We are going to take you through every layer of this story, but we are going to do it right. No shortcuts, no speculation dressed up as fact. Just the truth, as ugly and as uncomfortable as it is. Before we go any further, and we mean this case contains details that are deeply disturbing. We are talking about the disappearance and suspected abduction of an elderly woman, discussions of ransom, potential psychological manipulation, and the very real possibility that this crime was carried out against someone's most vulnerable family member as an act of targeted revenge. If any of those themes are difficult for you, please take care of yourself first. We will be here when you are ready. If you are new here, welcome to True Crime Files. This is the place where we do not flinch from the hard stories, because the people at the center of them deserve to have their truth told fully and honestly. Hit that subscribe button so you never miss a case, and drop a comment below letting us know where in the world you are watching from. We have a community spread across every corner of the globe, and every single one of you makes this work matter. Now, let's get into it. Nancy Ellen Long was born on January 27, 1942, in Fort Wright, Kentucky. She was not famous. She was not a public figure. She was a mother, a widow, and a woman who had quietly built an entire life in the desert Southwest over more than 5 decades. She moved to Tucson with her family in the early 1970s and never left. The city became hers. She knew its streets, its churches, its rhythms. She raised her 3 children there, Savannah, Annie, and Cameron. And when her husband Charles died in 1988 during a mining exploration trip in Mexico at just 49 years old, she did not leave. She stayed and raised those children largely on her own. By 2026, Nancy was 84. She lived independently in the Catalina Foothills, an established, upscale neighborhood on the northern edge of Tucson. She attended church regularly. She had close contact with her family. Her daughter Annie lived nearby. The week before she disappeared, Nancy had sat at Annie's dinner table like she had done countless times before. Her health was another matter. She relied on daily medications to manage chronic pain. From the moment she was reported missing, law enforcement treated that dependency as a critical urgency factor. Every hour without those medications carried consequences. Her daughter, Savannah, is the co-anchor of NBC's Today show, one of the most recognized journalists in the country. That connection would come to define how the world saw this case. But this story begins with Nancy. An ordinary evening, a family dinner, an Uber ride home, a good night that nobody knew would be the last one. At 5:32 in the evening on January 31st, 2026, Nancy Guthrie took an Uber to her daughter Annie's home for dinner. Nothing about that evening stood out. It was the kind of ordinary family night that leaves no particular memory. Food, conversation, a good night at the door. At approximately 9:40 p.m., Annie's husband, Tommaso Cioni, dropped Nancy off at her Catalina Foothills home. He watched her go inside. He drove away. Tommaso Cioni is the last known person to have seen Nancy Guthrie alive. What happened next was not captured in real time. It was reconstructed later, piece by piece, from the evidence left behind. At 1:47 a.m. on February 1st, a masked individual approached Nancy's front door. They raised a gloved hand directly to the Nest camera lens. When that did not fully obscure the view, they reached down, pulled a plant from the garden, and used it to block the camera entirely. Then they went inside. At 2:28 a.m., Nancy's pacemaker app disconnected from her phone. Investigators later used a signal detection device to search the surrounding area for pacemaker emissions. That timestamp is the closest thing the investigation has to a confirmed window for when Nancy left her home. By morning, she had not appeared for a scheduled church live stream. A member of her congregation contacted the family. Annie and Cameron arrived at the house around 11 a.m. Her phone was inside. Her medications were inside. Her purse was inside. Nothing she would have taken voluntarily was missing. At noon, the family called 911. Deputies found blood on the front porch. DNA testing later confirmed it was Nancy's. The back doors had been propped open. The camera had been disabled. Sheriff Chris Nanos reviewed the scene and made his position clear. He believed Nancy Guthrie had been abducted. There was one early investigative problem. Authorities initially told the public no doorbell footage existed because Nancy did not have an active Google Cloud subscription. The FBI later obtained a search warrant and recovered the footage from residual data inside Google's back-end systems. FBI Director Kash Patel confirmed that investigators spent days attempting to locate the corrupted and inaccessible images. Days, without the most critical piece of visual evidence in the case. On February 10th, the FBI released excerpts of the recovered Nest camera footage to the public. For the first time, the country had eyes on the person investigators believed took Nancy Guthrie. He is male, approximately 5 feet 9 to 5 feet 10 inches tall. Average build, he is wearing a ski mask with cutouts for the eyes and mouth. Black gloves cover his hands. A gun sits in a holster on his body, and strapped to his back is a black 25-liter Ozark Trail Hiker Pack backpack. That backpack became one of the most specific investigative threads in the entire case. Sheriff Nanos identified it publicly as one of the most promising leads his department had. The reason is straightforward. That exact backpack model is sold exclusively at Walmart. Walmart cooperated with investigators and provided purchase records for every Ozark Trail hiker pack transaction made across Arizona in the preceding 60 to 90 days. Investigators simultaneously reviewed surveillance footage from Walmart locations across Tucson, cross-referencing purchases against the physical description from the footage. The holster drew equal attention. Sheriff Nanos noted publicly that it had distinctive characteristics his team could not immediately identify. Investigators took the footage directly to gun shops across Tucson, asking shop owners and staff whether they recognized either the holster design or the man wearing it. The footage release generated more than 4,000 new tips within days. That same day, a man was detained during a traffic stop in Rio Rico, Arizona, roughly 60 miles south of Tucson near the U.S.-Mexico border. A search warrant was executed on a property and vehicle in the area. The man, who identified himself to media as Carlos and said he worked as a delivery driver, was released the following day. Sheriff Nanos confirmed he had no connection to Nancy's disappearance. Separately, investigators contacted neighbors of Nancy's home, requesting security camera footage from two specific windows, January 11th between 9 p.m. and midnight, and January 31st between 9:30 a.m. and 11 a.m. The January 11th date is 3 weeks before the abduction. Investigators were not looking at it randomly. They had a reason to believe something happened near that property on that night. The suspect is on camera. Law enforcement has his physical description, a backpack tied to a single national retailer, a distinctive holster, and footage of exactly how he moved. As of day 86, not one name has been attached to any of it. On February 2nd, the ransom letters arrived. KOLD-TV, the CBS affiliate in Tucson, was among the first to receive one. The letter demanded payment for Nancy's release and included two deadlines: February 5th and February 9th. Other Arizona television stations received similar correspondence around the same time, and almost immediately, the people who had spent careers working kidnapping cases started raising flags. Because here is the problem. When someone takes a person for money, they do not send letters to the news. They contact the family privately, quietly, and directly. That is how ransom works. That is how leverage works. Sending demands through media outlets is either a sign of profound amateur thinking or something else entirely. On February 4th, Savannah appeared on camera alongside Annie and Cameron. She spoke directly to whoever had her mother. She told them the family was ready to talk. She asked for proof of life. Because, as she put it, voices and images can be manipulated. Savannah later confirmed she believed two of the letters were real. That same day, two family members received texts from an unknown number. "Did you get the 12 Bitcoin? We're waiting." Investigators traced those messages within hours to Derrick Callella, 42, of Hawthorne, California. He had found the family's contact information on a website. He had watched the case on television and decided to insert himself into it. He was arrested the next morning. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer called his $20,000 bond horrible. If convicted, Callella faces 20 years. On February 10th, reporter Brianna Whitney at CBS Phoenix reported something significant. A small deposit appeared in the Bitcoin wallet linked to the original demand. A message accompanied it. "We are ready to talk. Contact us." A link was included. After that, nothing. The wallet went silent. A retired federal agent named Steve, who spent years working kidnapping investigations at the bureau level, offered this. The FBI's measured response was not hesitation. It was strategy. In kidnapping cases, desperation costs lives. The FBI's job is never to appear as though they need this more than the other side does. Their signal was calibrated. We are here, we are ready, but this will happen on equal terms. The silence that followed may say more about the perpetrators than it does about the Bureau. But here is what cuts through all of it. In every legitimate kidnapping for ransom case, proof of life is the perpetrator's most powerful card. It is leverage. It is proof the asset still has value. And in this case, not one photograph, not one audio clip, not 1 second of video was ever produced. Not once. That absence forced investigators to begin asking a question that had no comfortable answer. Was money ever actually the point? TMZ received a tip from someone claiming to know the kidnapper's identity, asking for Bitcoin in exchange for the name. That went nowhere. In April 2026, another message arrived claiming Nancy had been seen in Mexico. Law enforcement has not verified either claim. The letters came, the deadlines passed, the wallet went dark, and Nancy has not been seen since. By the time February reached its second week, this investigation had become one of the largest missing persons operations in Arizona history. More than 400 investigators were working the case simultaneously. The Pima County Sheriff's Department led the effort, with the FBI, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, and multiple search and rescue teams operating alongside them. Sheriff Chris Nanos became the public face of it. The man behind the podium, the voice delivering updates. He had been unambiguous from the beginning. He believed Nancy was taken. And when speculation online began pointing fingers at the family, Nanos shut it down without hesitation. The Guthrie family were victims. They were cooperative. Not one of them was ever a suspect. Beside him at press conferences stood John Edwards, the FBI's assistant special agent in charge. The Bureau's formal involvement reflected the suspected interstate or foreign dimension of the crime, and what that meant for the resources available. Between 40,000 and 50,000 tips had flooded in by mid-February. Investigators canvassed every resident within a 2-mile radius of Nancy's home, requesting any security footage containing anything unusual between January 1st and February 2nd. The window was wide because they were not entirely sure when surveillance of her home had begun. Questions about the early response surfaced. The department's fixed-wing Cessna aircraft was reportedly grounded for roughly half a day after Nancy was reported missing. Sources cited by the Daily Mail flagged it. Nanos's team did not address it directly. On February 13th, investigators moved on a residence approximately 2 miles from Nancy's home near East Orange Grove Road. 2 people were removed. One was questioned and released the following day. Roads closed for 4 hours. Separately, officers surrounded an SUV outside a nearby Culver's restaurant and questioned the driver for several hours. No arrests followed. Evidence was also collected at Annie Guthrie's home. A paper grocery sack, a white trash bag, a stack of mail. Procedure, not suspicion. The crime scene at Nancy's property drew its own scrutiny. Tape went up, came down, went back up. Former prosecutor Lindsay Richards noted publicly that releasing a crime scene prematurely in a case of this nature can permanently destroy what remains. The FBI raised its reward to $100,000. On February 24th, Savannah announced the family was offering $1 million of their own for information, leading to Nancy's safe return. President Trump called the situation terrible. He called Savannah directly on February 4th after watching her NBC interview, offering additional federal resources. He later told the New York Post that if Nancy were found deceased, the Justice Department should pursue the death penalty. The White House posted about the case publicly, urging anyone with information to come forward. 400 investigators, 50,000 tips, $1 million reward. And still, no Nancy. The blood on the front porch was confirmed as Nancy's. That was the first forensic certainty in a case that would grow increasingly complex with every sample collected. Inside the property, investigators found something else. DNA belonging to someone other than Nancy was recovered from within the residence. The sheriff's department did not specify the exact location. The profile, believed to belong to a male, was entered into CODIS, the FBI's National Criminal DNA database. No match came back. Approximately 2 miles from Nancy's home, a pair of black gloves was recovered. They visually matched what the masked suspect had been wearing in the Nest camera footage. Preliminary DNA testing returned another unknown male profile. Again, no CODIS match. Investigators traced the gloves to a local restaurant worker. He had no connection to the case. That thread closed. A hair sample collected from inside the home in February was sent to the FBI laboratory at Quantico for advanced analysis. Along with other mixed DNA samples recovered from the property, it represents the current center of the forensic investigation. DNA expert C.C. Moore offered critical context on why this work takes time. The samples collected at Nancy's home were mixed, meaning they contained genetic material from more than one person. That is not unusual in a home environment, but it makes standard analysis nearly useless. Isolating a single profile from a complex mixture requires specialized software. Moore revealed that new mixture deconvolution technology was being fast-tracked. Its release timeline moved up specifically because of the urgency this case demanded. She added something investigators cannot ignore. If the suspect spent approximately 40 to 42 minutes inside that property, it is almost impossible he left nothing behind. She recommended a return to the residence to search for additional isolated samples. A forensics laboratory in Northern California, the same lab that helped identify Rex Hoyerman in the Gilgo Beach murders, was reportedly assisting the FBI. This lab specializes in forensic genealogy, constructing family trees from partial DNA matches to identify unknown individuals. It is slow, deliberate work, but when it produces a result, that result holds. The Pima County Sheriff's Department also sent a sample to a private lab in Florida they work with regularly. The FBI clarified to ABC News that this was not new evidence. The material had been requested more than 2 months prior, and analysis was already underway. Nancy's pacemaker app disconnected from her phone at 2:28 in the morning on February 1st. Investigators deployed a signal detection device across the surrounding area, attempting to locate either Nancy or the device itself. No confirmed result was ever made public. Former FBI Assistant Director John Miller was direct. He believes the answer is in Tucson. In his assessment, the person who took Nancy was local. Someone who knew she lived alone, knew the property, and was comfortable enough in that knowledge to execute a plan against an elderly, vulnerable woman without hesitation. Miller theorized the perpetrator had prior contact with the home, a contractor, a repair technician, someone who had been inside and filed that information away. He described the broader scheme as an attempt to take kidnapping into the digital age. Bitcoin instead of a bag of cash. Anonymous communications instead of a phone call. No physical collection point where you could be caught. Local knowledge. Digital execution. That was Miller's read. Ann Burgess, the forensic nursing professor whose behavioral research shaped the foundation of criminal profiling, raised a different dimension. She theorized something went wrong inside that home, a complication the perpetrators had not planned for. She also introduced the possibility that Nancy was never the intended target at all, that she was the instrument, that the real target was Savannah, and that the public-facing ransom letters reflected a perpetrator who wanted visibility as much as money. Savannah herself confirmed that fear in a March interview with Hoda Kotb. She said publicly that she believes her mother was taken because of her. That statement does not come lightly from a journalist. Former FBI agent Jennifer Coffindaffer assessed the motive as financial at its core, while acknowledging Nancy may not have survived, and that perpetrators in such cases sometimes continue sending communications regardless, prolonging a family's torment with no intention of resolution. Retired FBI agent Jason Pack offered a quieter observation about Savannah's return to the Today Show anchor desk. Most criminals, he said, count on the news cycle moving on. Every morning she sits in that chair, keeps the pressure alive, and makes silence harder to maintain for anyone who knows something. Steve, the retired federal agent consulting on this case, returned to the February 10th Bitcoin message and the silence that followed. He explained that in kidnapping negotiations, appearing desperate is a tactical failure. The FBI's response was measured by design. The silence from the other side, he argued, likely reflects the perpetrator's own planning beginning to fracture, not a failure of the Bureau. The profiles differ in their specifics, but they point toward the same center. Sources with knowledge of the Pima County Sheriff's Department told Fox News Digital and News Nation that the detectives initially assigned to this case were not experienced homicide investigators. Of the 6 detectives on the squad, only one had more than 3 years on the homicide team. The remaining 5 had less than 2. The sergeant supervising them had been placed in charge of the unit with 6 months of experience as a sergeant, before he had personally led a homicide investigation from start to finish. Sheriff Nanos pushed back. He defended the sergeant publicly, citing solved cases and a strong clearance rate. He stated the sergeant had been running homicide for over 2 years, but the characterization had already landed. Nanos also acknowledged during one interview that he was not personally directing the investigation, describing his own role in terms that a crisis communications expert, speaking to the Mirror, called a leadership vacuum. In high-profile cases, clarity of command is not optional. Inconsistent messaging from the top erodes public trust at exactly the moment that trust matters most. Then came the emails. Fox News Digital obtained more than 220 communications between the Pima County Sheriff's Department and 2020 Productions, a reality television company that had signed a deal to film a series about the department's operations. The emails showed the department arranging ride-alongs, flagging incidents for cameras, and fast-tracking records for producers. A June 2025 email from producer Amanda Riley requested updated contacts across department units. The reply from Captain Robert Kumel revealed that leadership of every major investigative unit she had asked about, including homicide and cold cases, had changed. Everyone. Rotated out in the year before Nancy Guthrie was taken. The Pima County Board of Supervisors voted unanimously to demand sworn testimony from Nanos after reports emerged that he may have misrepresented his employment history during a December 2025 deposition in a separate lawsuit. Documents from 1982 surfaced, including a suspension notice related to force used against a handcuffed suspect. Nanos denied misrepresentation. The board hired outside legal counsel and gave him 10 business days to respond. When asked about calls for his resignation, Nanos said, "For 50 years, every sheriff here has had that. I can't listen to that. That's white noise." The crime scene tape at Nancy's home went up, came down, and went back up. Nanos acknowledged it. Former prosecutor Lindsay Richards stated plainly that releasing a crime scene too early can permanently destroy what is left to find. As of April 27th, 2026, day 86, Nancy Guthrie has not been found. No suspect has been publicly named. No arrest has been made. The Pima County Sheriff's Department announced it is refocusing resources, language that signals a deliberate shift from large-scale ground searches toward a more targeted, evidence-driven phase. Sheriff Nanos has been clear on one point. As long as we have the ability to chase a lead, it's not cold. On April 6th, Savannah returned to the Today Show. She wore yellow, the color of the flowers and ribbons left by community members during the search. Her first words, "Good morning. Welcome to Today. It is good to be home." She told Hoda Kotb in March she did not know if she could come back or if she would belong anymore. She wanted to try. Cotby later said, "I get to watch what strength looks like." NBC has since put protocols in place. If breaking news on the case hits while Savannah is on set, she is removed quietly and briefed privately while another anchor covers it. The DNA and hair evidence from Nancy's home remains under active analysis. The forensic genealogy process and the mixture deconvolution software represent the two most live forensic threads in this investigation. If a usable family tree emerges, a name follows. Derrick Callella's trial is scheduled for June 23rd. His case is separate, but it will pull national attention back to this story at a moment when forensic results may be close. The unverified Mexico sighting reported to TMZ has not been confirmed. Trespassers and social media investigators have prompted increased patrols near Nancy's neighborhood. The $1 million reward remains active. The FBI tip line remains open. This case is not over. The forensic results are still pending. The Callella trial is 6 weeks away. New information is surfacing every week, and when the next development breaks, whether it is a DNA match, a court filing, or something no one has anticipated, we will be here covering it the way it deserves to be covered. Fully, honestly, without shortcuts. If you are not subscribed, you will miss it. Subscribe now. Hit the bell. Drop a comment below. This channel exists because of people who want the full story. On this case, the full story is not finished yet.